Hi, kitty cats. I am Amethyst Herrick, your hostess for Gender Identity Weekly, a weekly discussion about identity and gender from the contributors and guests of the Purple Paw Publications website, genderidentitytoday.com. This content right here is brought to you by subscribers of genderidentitytoday.com. If you are already a subscriber, first of all, let me just thank you for your ongoing support. You know pretty dang well that subscribers not only receive all new content directly to their email inboxes as soon as it publishes, but are also able to interact with every contributor directly, which does include me. And I mean, I want to interact with me, so why wouldn't you? So if you would like to support shows just like this one, as well as other podcasts, videos, and written articles by our contributors, please consider subscribing using the links you're going to find down there in the show notes. Well, I am very, very excited to be speaking with Elizabeth Snyder. Hi, Liz.
Hi. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh my gosh, this is going to be a great conversation, I know, because Liz is a women's portraiture artist, a confidence expert, and a workshop leader. What got me about your background, Liz, so you're an award-winning photographer whose mission is, and I'm quoting this, quote, to help women feel their worth in any situation. End quote. I suppose I should do that. That's a great mission. What a phenomenal mission.
Well, thank you very much. It's something very, very, very important to me.
It's very important, I think, to all of humanity, because I think we have the tendency, I mean, women in particular, because you can look at Western society and go, well, yeah. But everybody struggles, right, to feel their worth. And I think that, so this is great work that you're doing. I love to start off with an origin story, is what I like to think of it as, like your Black Widow or something, right?
Yeah.
You grew up in Russia and you're going to go and so what happened back in Mother Russia?
Yeah, right. In the old country. Yeah.
The old country. What happened when you were younger that set you on this mission, that set you going on this mission that you're doing today? What was that?
So I did not know just how rare it was that I knew exactly what I was supposed to be doing with my life at a very young age. So growing up, my home life wasn't exactly healthy or happy, but we had lots of family around. And there was one day that I called my aunt, and she came and got me, and we did this project together. And her grandfather retired from his photojournalist job at the newspaper. He gave her everything that she would need to set up, like a modest darkroom and studio in her attic. Yeah. And when I watched something appear on the paper where there was nothing before, it was like magic. I was completely sold. I knew that this was what I was supposed to be doing. Life happens, like things get in the way of our dreams and of what we kind of know deep down that, I'm really not supposed to be a repo man. I should be, something else. How did I get here kind of deal? So that is the part that really drives me. So when I have clients in the studio or I'm working with somebody, I love to hear their story of the same thing that you do. I love to hear how they got where they are now. And opening that up and being like, okay, but who told you couldn't be a pop star? Who told you couldn't be an astronaut? Somebody told you no at some point and you listen to them, because chances are you're still looking up at the stars at night. If you wanted to be an astronaut, you're still belting songs out in the car if you wanted to sing. You're still inviting it into your life. And it's okay that you're not doing it for money or you're not like at the top of your game or anything like that. But the fact that you're letting that joy in is very important. And there's so many of us, especially women, because we put everything ahead of ourselves, to kind of get back to that and know how important it is to have that identity.
Yeah. Yeah. I know that in at least on your website, you do mention that you also struggled to manifest everything. Are you willing to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. It took a long time. During high school, I kind of exhausted all of the art classes I could take at the time. And school was tough. I was not exactly somebody that was very book smart.
Okay.
So we had an opportunity to go to trade school for half the day. And I went for cosmetology because I wanted to learn how to do hair and makeup for photo shoots, just so that I knew what was going on. And also it got me out of school, mostly that. But, it's all right. I walked out with my cosmetology license. So that was a good, because once I graduated, I had nowhere to live. My parents were getting divorced. My mom bought a small house, and she had room for my younger brothers, and I had to figure it out pretty quick.
Gosh.
Yeah. So I was working 2 jobs, one full-time, one part-time. My boyfriend, now ex-husband at the time, was he was going to school and working part-time. So it's like I had to make money though, and he was already in school, so I didn't go. Then we got married, then we had kids, then we got divorced. So like all of these things.
Sure.
And there was a very low point where so we live in Buffalo and we get lots and lots of snow. And there are times that people don't like to shovel their sidewalks. So walking to the food bank with the kids, towing a sled on the side so that I could get there. It was like a mile and a half up the road, which I was very lucky to have access to. But so that was my low, like, this is not normal. I'm not going to let my kids think that this is a normal point. I got a job at a bank, and that was when I finally manifested it. I hated what I was doing, and a friend of mine had asked, age, circumstance, money, whatever it is, if nothing mattered, what would you do? My knee-jerk reaction was photography. He sent me a link to a contest to win a laptop, Photoshop, and a camera, and I won. And that was the end of it. Yeah, within a year, I was making more money doing photography than I was working at the bank. So I quit. And I got to do this the rest of my life. I've been since 2012. So yeah, been 12 years, I guess.
Yeah, 12 years. What a great story. So what, good, but so, I mean, I do want to know too, because like when I think you said it was an aunt who had a dark room, right? So what it was? Okay. So what did you like to work in back in, was it black and white or was it?
Black and white. Oh yeah, 100%. So my first job was at a 1-hour photo lab, like my first real job besides babysitting.
Awesome.
Yeah. So I did learn how to do color eventually, but like the old fashioned kind of setup was just for black and white. And it's really good to have a base in that if you're thinking photography is for you, because you really learn about shadows and highlights. And that's all photography is, even in color. It's just how the light bounces off of you. So once you get a good handle on what light is going to do in any situation, you're there. You're a great photographer. So it's I was glad that I had the experience of working with film, working in a dark room. I'm aging myself, but I was glad that I had that rather than just jumping into digital, because I think a lot of maybe younger photographers struggle a little more with really getting that foundation strong.
Oh, I agree. I mean, when you pick up like a point and shoot, I'm going to nerd out a little bit on camera.
Please, yeah.
Because in graduate school, I also, we had a dark room. And so I just started learning black and white photography, developing negatives and then printing them. For some reason, my favorite part of that, I may be embarrassed about this, but I loved using the little grain enlarger, and then making sure the focus was really good. I don't know. It probably could have come up with better parts of photography to appreciate than focus, but
focus is extremely important. You would be surprised. No, it is extremely important.
But what was I going to say? Oh yeah. So I was going to say, I think you pick up like a point and shoot type camera. You never end up learning about what you can do with like depth of field and even just like how wide things can be. So, you end up not caring so much about aperture. I mean, almost never, because it's a point and shoot camera. It's hard to mess with that. I have a camera that allows me to mess with aperture, and it's like, it's really hard. When you're just twisting a little thing on the lens,
Yeah.
like that's obvious because you're looking at it. Anyway,
Yeah.
moving on. I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
I agree. Yeah, digital takes a lot out of the process, but
Mhm.
anyway, that's amazing. So you had the background in digital, but then you went, the background in black and white, but then the laptop, Photoshop, and camera must have been digital then
It
in
was,
2012.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and it was back in the days when you had to buy the actual Photoshop program for the computer.
Sure.
So now it's all subscription based, but they didn't
Right.
have that a long time ago. So yeah, no, everything was digital. And what's really nice about Photoshop is that they do set up their tools a lot like a regular darkroom. So you still have your dodge and burn tools, you have your cropping tools, you have like everything's
Right.
there. You just have to learn, you just have to reacquaint yourself with it. And I found, I mean, while I was still working at the bank, I was, stealing time watching videos and watching all kinds of
Oh,
stuff. And,
sure.
it's, yeah, I feel bad about it now. But at the time, I'm like,
Nah.
whatever, I'm doing it. I'm still working. I'm just watching stuff.
Yeah.
But, it didn't take me that long. It took me maybe a solid 6 months of like really intense watching YouTube videos and Creative Live and all kinds of stuff to really get good at it. But it wasn't completely foreign to me. So I got lucky there.
I guess I didn't think about that. I guess it is sort of similar. There are tools similar to a darkroom because I think about like masks and all the other things that I do in Photoshop that I don't,
Yeah.
certainly didn't mess around with in a darkroom, but
And you may not have, but honestly, like everybody blames Photoshop for like the perfection that we see on, billboards and models and all of that.
sure.
People have been manipulating photography since the beginning of photography. They have known
Yes.
how to make somebody slimmer or how to, hide something or make it look like there's a ghost behind you or whatever it was.
Right. Right.
They figured it out pretty quick, and it's not Photoshop. It's us as society that we need to.
Absolutely. No,
Yeah.
absolutely. I agree. And actually on that note, I'll admit something here. There's a scientific journal out there somewhere. What we used the black and white film for, because it was really super slow film. I wish I could remember. It was like really, really slow film, like ASA 4 or something. It was really, really slow. And we used it to take photographs of a low energy electron diffraction pattern. I'm not finished even. You're like, yeah, that sounds really boring. Yeah, it gets more boring. We had like a metal crystal. I think there were gold crystals, and so the low energy electron diffraction was done with like selenium, I believe, on the surface. It was super duper boring. Point is, super duper boring. We would take these photographs, and I know somebody, I think the grad student who had taken some of the original data was gone. And so it was like, okay, you have to go and fix. There was one spot that should have been there, but it was really, really dim. It was not dim by the time I made it to publication because that's what I learned how to do. And anyway, that sort of started me down the path. Was it a real, diffraction pattern? No. But neither are some of these people, thin with beautiful skin either. So exactly. I'm with you on that. There's my story of,
yeah. No, and I think, it's getting better as far as like the retouching and showing perfection all the time. And I'm so happy for that. It's still there though. Like Dove commercials are still editing their pictures. I promise. Like it's just not, they're not getting rid of all the cellulite or they're not getting rid of whatever, but there's definitely still retouching going on. So it's silly to think that, that we're not, I don't think we're completely ready for it. And I don't know that it's a bad thing to have a polished picture as long as it still looks like the person you're taking a picture of.
Sure. But this actually feeds into what your mission ended up becoming, that we look at media today and we go, oh, wow, like that's not a real photo for sure. Your part of your mission is, well, actually, let me start that from a different direction. do we have only the media to blame? Like, because I mean, when I do shows like this, like I've got 3-point lighting, I'm doing things so that I try to look as good as I can look anyway,
Uh-huh.
which is, I recognize already. You're like, well, that's a low bar, Amy, but
That's
why
not true.
do we? Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I'm going to keep you on for every week. Does that
Well,
sound
good.
good? We can just,
Perfect.
but why do we always end up uncomfortable in front of the camera? And women in particular, you mentioned Dove commercials, and there's no man using Dove. You know that.
I,
But
yeah.
so what is it? What causes that?
It's not just the media. Of course, they don't help. It's not just government stuff, and that doesn't help. There's a whole bunch of societal stuff that goes into what women should be. And if you go back to even World War One, and women started throwing out their corsets, and all of a sudden the Roaring Twenties came in, and it was just these very straight framed dresses, right? Which was a complete change from the Victorian 12-inch waist model. And so like that shifted women. And then as soon as the boys came back, like women were taking their girdles off in order to work the jobs, just like they did in World War II.
Sure.
The men came back, and then they're like, oh no, you need to, be rail thin and do it. That was when the waif look kind of came in. And then World War II, the government started, the Rosie the Riveter campaign, getting women into the workforce, and women got a taste of independence. They didn't want to go back to the home. So the government made all of those strong, empowered Rosie the Riveters, pretty much made them, I'm not thinking of the word, but making them not attractive anymore. And then they took away childcare that they were offering. They took away a ton of social benefits that was there for women to make it. And yeah, they had free healthcare, they had free childcare, and they had other benefits as well. And when the boys came back, they all wanted their jobs back. And that was the way that they got women back into the home. And then that's where you come up with the 50s stereotype mom with the twists again, and and it just kind of went full circle. And then of course the 60s, and there's a whole evolution of it there. But the government part of it always has to do with war, and it's always women that kind of suffer afterward. And there's so many different parts that go into what our own expectations are of ourselves that we don't even know it. Like we're being bombarded from birth of what makes a woman. And I'm so glad that it's changing. You have no idea. Like I am thrilled that it is these younger kids coming up that are not going to put up with any of the stuff that we put up with,
Oh, yeah.
It makes me happy.
I do have some idea, on how happy you might be that stereotypes around women are changing. So
100%, yeah. No, you identify as a woman, you are a woman. Nobody wants to set themselves up for ridicule or a harder life than what they already have or anything like that.
Oh my gosh.
It's so important that you're validated in the fact that this is who you are, and sorry. The political climate is a whole thing. So
that's a good point. You had mentioned too, so after World War II, I had never heard this story. The government actually took away enough benefits that women went, oh crap, I guess we'd better stay here.
Yeah.
I mean, because I just think about my own story. And the 1980s, by the time I was a teenager, talking about aging yourself there, right? That was just, why did I do that? But by the time I was a teenager, I would say I was shamed into being the person society wanted me to be. It wasn't a conscious choice. I didn't go, oh yeah, I totally want to have an unfulfilling life, looking not the way I want to for the rest of me. I didn't choose that. There were some social norms that shamed me into it. In particular, nobody likes feminine men, right? That's a bad thing. Because we value these, society apparently values people with whatever, big, huge biceps. I don't even know, really, because I like feminine men.
Yeah.
But so I'd like to think of that. Do I want to say it like that? I kind of want to think of that as my choice. But at the same time, I would say I was shamed into it.
Yeah.
How does that fit into, what? How does that fit into what we're talking about here? I guess. I mean, you had to go back into the home. Women had to go back into the home because it was like, well, who's going to take care of the kids?
Yep.
If there's no way to care for them, this by necessity, I feel like I chose to hide who I am. I'm going to stop talking. What do you think about any of that?
Yeah, no. And, I mean, 40, 50 years ago, it was such a taboo. It was still illegal to be a gay person. Like it was,
yes.
Yeah. Like I mean, we only, and for people who are younger, who maybe did not have to live through the bad years where, somebody who loves, if you're two men or two women or whatever, you weren't allowed to get married. You couldn't share benefits, even though you're life partners. Like they don't benefit from your, pension or, any of the other things that you would think, so there are different stories everywhere. So it's hard. It's like, however you identify is going to be a different kind of experience from, like, a trans woman is going to have a different experience than maybe a lesbian woman who's born a girl. You know what I mean? Like, but they're still going to have their own trauma around it, and you're still going to identify differently, but the same. So, like, we can all agree that, yeah. And it's, again, it's that, like, we were told, like, that 50s nuclear family that, we were told is supposed to be the right way. You toe the line, you do this stuff, and there is no other option. And, my oldest child is gender neutral. And that was extremely hard for them and they said when they came out, they had said, Mom, I didn't know there was another way to be. I didn't understand that I had a choice in this. And I mean, that was amazingly heartbreaking, but also, like, I was so glad that they're feeling like they can be themselves now. It's tough and it's still happening. It's still a lot of pressure and it's still a lot of kids at school picking on you, even though it is better. It's still, they still don't see it as something that is normal. I don't understand why the default isn't just you love who you love, you are how you are, and you figure it out, instead of this is who you are and who you should be. And I don't like you if you're not,
Yeah. It's a good question. I'm gonna. This is maybe not a limb I want to go out on, but I'm gonna go out on a limb. Like, I understand if the government said, okay, what we want to do is put women back into the home because the men are back, the boys are back. So we got to find something to do with them. Like, at the very least, it's not regulating identity, whereas you look at what they're doing today, there's a lot of legislation, the Supreme Court just heard, about a law that says, well, you can't get gender affirming care if you're not supposedly of the gender that, should get it. And I don't know. I'm almost okay with the idea of the government saying, well, we're trying to do this for a reason, as opposed to, we just want you to be unhappy. Like that.
Yeah. The reason is that it makes them uncomfortable. Like that's it.
Yeah.
Something icky to them,
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that's what matters, not how
Hmm.
the person who is coming to you for help feels.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
it is very upsetting.
Hmm.
It is extremely scary right now for not for me. I know I'll be fine. I'm cis white female, but
Sure.
my kids are going to suffer. I have friends that are going to
Yes.
suffer. I have,
Yeah.
and it's unfortunate that we are going backwards, but we can hope that that changes and that the kids and us and all of these people who are able can go out and hopefully make a fuss and make sure that you keep your rights. It's
Right.
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Do you know what makes me uncomfortable? Creepy old white men wondering what's in my underpants.
Isn't that disgusting? Yeah,
Yeah, why is that? Why are you doing that?
yeah,
That's
yeah, yeah.
like
Maybe don't
what?
worry about it. Maybe just
Yeah,
yeah. It's not for you to understand, so just move on, please. Yeah.
right, right. These were people who back in the 50s were like, boy, I'm so glad my mom's sitting at home with her 10-inch waist
Yeah.
and an A-line dress, right?
Yeah. Vacuuming in her heels. Yeah.
Right,
I
right,
know.
right.
My mom was telling me
Making a
about a time.
meatloaf.
Yeah, exactly. She's like, "Oh no, women wore their hair in curlers to go out to the store so that they look perfect for their husbands." I'm like, "Why?"
Yes.
He doesn't care.
No, guy came home and he was like, "Can I have? I just want to." At this point, all I want is a shot of bourbon because I've been in,
Give
I've
me
been
my
at work all day. Right. You know, something like that.
yeah.
But so now, now those kids who grew up watching that are now going, I'm really, really interested. If somebody walks into a particular room where there might be a toilet, I'm really, really concerned
Yeah.
about what's going to happen when they actually pee. You
Uh-huh.
know,
Yeah.
is that to me, that's pretty creepy. Like,
It is.
it's pretty
It is a
creepy.
bizarre thing to get stuck on for sure.
Yes,
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah.
All right. So we could continue talking about this for the rest of the show, I'm sure. But I would rather let's see what you do about this.
Okay.
You get women into photo sessions. Do you ever do photo sessions with men at all, or do you
Oh yeah,
prefer to work
I
with
do.
women? Okay.
Yeah, I tell people I specialize in women's portraiture
Okay.
because it is so hard to get women comfortable in front of the camera.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I believe that. So actually, before I say anything else, I know when I reached out to you originally, I had I met somebody who is a photographer, and I have never been in a real photo session before. And during that session, there's no other way that I can say this. During that session, the way that she worked with me, like I felt beautiful. And it
Yeah.
was probably, I mean, it was just last year. In fact, actually, it was almost exactly a year ago. Well, it was a little more. It was like October of 2023. It was really, truly, I would say, the first time in my life that I felt seen and that I felt, I'm going to end up crying if I do. But I felt seen and I felt beautiful and I felt worthy. I don't know what word I want to use there. Valuable.
Yeah.
I don't know what magic this photographer did, but it was magical. And I asked her on a show, and I'm going to ask you, what is that? How do you draw that out of people?
It is not an easy thing to be able to do.
Mm,
It is something that you have to really pay attention to. And I've trained my team. The day is around the client. We don't talk
mm,
about what's going on in our lives. We are asking them questions. We are encouraging stories. We are trying to get to the bottom of, because I do get women in the studio that are sometimes almost angry that they're there because
oh
their
gosh.
boss told them that they needed a headshot
Mm,
for the website or whatever, and
sure.
they had a picture from 20 years ago that they loved, but their boss is telling them no, it has to be current. So getting somebody from almost angry to booking their next session because they can't wait to do it again, there's actually a huge chunk of time dedicated to that.
Mm.
Making sure that the client knows that this is about them and her, and that we are there to make sure that she is like looking exactly like she does, only on a really, really good day. So just taking away some of the tiredness sometimes, or you know, like just showing somebody how to emote and what their body language is doing. And I never let them think about how awkward they feel. So I'm constantly making micro adjustments and making sure that it's the exact right shot that comes from film before you take the picture, because that costs money, right? So
Right.
yeah. So, you know, because I'm keeping them occupied, they're not thinking about how nervous they are. There are a couple of other things that I do too. So when they're looking at the lens of the camera, they're not seeing you, the photographer, they're seeing themselves. And that is often where like the deer in the headlights kind of come in, because they're like, oh, what do I do? You know?
Right.
And being able to occupy their mind with, okay, Disney princess fingers, let's, you know, chin out, chin over, you know, like make sure you're working your shoulder. And then they're able to have fun with it. So if they know what they're supposed to be doing and why and all of that, they can let go a little bit. And even before that, while they're sitting in hair and makeup, like we are having conversations about, oh, you know, why are you getting these done? What company do you work for? How did you get that job? You know, and just really kind of digging into who they are as a person and how did they get that job? And what is it that they'd rather be doing, if anything, or if they're perfectly happy doing what they're doing, you know? Once they trust you, they let go of the fear. And I actually have this other tool that I use. I don't know if you've heard of a true mirror before. They're very cool. They're two mirrors butted up against each other at like 45-degree angles. So it unreverses the mirror effect.
Oh, I see. Yes.
So you're looking at yourself like other people see you. And I cannot even begin to tell you how profound it is. It is rare that somebody does not cry. Suddenly they see how what everybody says, oh, you look like your mother, or you look like your aunt, or whoever, you know, and they're like, oh my God, that's me. And the difference between that and like a selfie is that your brain is focusing in as if it's looking at a person in live view. So your brain is looking at you like you're a stranger meeting for the first time. Instead of like with the phone, your brain is constantly scanning. Oh, this app alert went off, or oh, I just have this, and how do I look? And it's going to be here. You're not doing that when you're looking into this mirror. Your brain is focused as if it's seeing somebody else, and it is profound. It is my favorite thing to do to people.
The selfie camera, though, it is set up so that you're looking at it like you're in a regular mirror, though, right? Aren't those generally? Because it needs to be flipped, I think, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And it does, but it's not quite like when you're looking through a camera, your brain doesn't click the same way as it does if it's seeing a live person in front of you.
Okay.
And that's where the difference kind of comes in, and you can connect with yourself that way. Like if you're giving yourself eye contact, you are giving yourself eye contact. Like there's a trigger that happens that is like, oh my God, there I am.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, yeah, it's pretty cool.
That's amazing. And people cry.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty cool. If you look it up, the YouTube, yeah, I'm old. If you look it up on YouTube, there's a whole bunch of videos on it. Yeah, it's a fantastic tool. I absolutely love it.
I'll look it up. I will look it up on the internet.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's just a series of tubes. It's just a series of tubes. There are. I want to follow up on that because there are two ways that I've seen you describe this process. One of them, if I think I'm quoting this correctly, finding the inner goddess. I think that was part of it, was finding your inner goddess.
Mm-hmm.
But then you've also mentioned changing the inner dialogue.
Yeah.
What happens? Like, what is that? What is the inner dialogue that you're going through that you don't see yourself, or we choose not to see ourselves, maybe?
we always see our imperfections first. Almost 100% of the time. You look in the mirror and you're like, ugh, all right, I have that bump on my nose, or I got a pimple, or I got a, you know, I look really tired because I got circles under my eyes, or whatever it is. Like, there's always something. But shutting it down, like, it's there in a fear capacity. It's there to like, hey, do you remember when you like embarrassed yourself like crazy because you had food on your teeth or whatever it was? It's trying to save you from having that embarrassed feeling, or, you know, you're going to be in trouble feeling, or whatever it is. But acknowledging it when it happens and then telling it to sit down and shut up is, you know, because you don't have control over it, you know, especially when you start practicing looking at yourself in the mirror every day, just giving yourself eye contact every day in the mirror is going to raise your self-esteem by a ton. Like, you have no idea how important it is.
Wow. Oops. Wow. Keep going. I'm sorry. I was just going to follow up on that. Why would that raise your self-esteem? Because I would look in the mirror and go, "Oh my God, I look horrible." Horrible. You know?
If you learn to shut that off and be like, okay, I hear it. Yep. Thank you. Maybe I'm a little tired today. Maybe whatever. And then you find something good to say about yourself. So when you are looking in the mirror, you're giving yourself eye contact, you hear the voice going off, and you're like, you know what, though? I'm having a great hair day. I'm, you know, your eyebrow game is on point today. Like, you can always find something that you could be happy about. And practicing that, and practicing being aware of when, that voice kind of pops in, and being like, okay, what is it trying to protect me from? Okay, I get it. Thank you. And then you can move on. And it does take practice, especially if you've had a lifetime of, I hate myself every time I look in the mirror, which I'm sure you can relate to as somebody who's a trans woman. I'm sure there were many years you weren't happy, you know?
Yeah, I can count them, actually. It was 52. So.
Yeah. So, you know, it's very important to be at least trying to be happy with who you are. And if you aren't happy with that person, what are the changes that you can make to, I mean, we're with ourselves for life. So we gotta find a way to like ourselves.
It's a good point. You've mentioned the word fear several times. Fear of what?
Fear of... just fear in general is what the kickback I get from people who are maybe coming in because their boss told them to, or deciding on whether or not this is going to be for them. It's fear of anything. It's mostly fear that the social approval isn't going to be there. Like, who do I think I am? Imposter syndrome crap comes up all the time. And it's not necessarily fear of something that's going to like kill you, because, you know, we're not being chased by bears every day anymore, but it's that same response in our nervous system when like we go up to public speak or something like that. Oh God, I'm having a panic attack. Why am I having a panic attack? What is the worst thing that can happen? So it's, if you dig in, it's always, okay, I'm afraid of XYZ. What's going to happen if the inevitable, you know, if the worst case scenario, I'm still going to be alive and well, and at least I tried, right? So it's
very common. It's very common, especially in the transgender community. Well, transgender women anyway, that what we fear... Ooh, shoot. I started this sentence, but I didn't know how to finish it. Give me a second to formulate.
Yeah, you're good.
Because what we fear is, I think, learning to love ourselves, learning to like ourselves, being able to look in the mirror and go, oh, hey, I am pretty. You know, there's a sense of fear. Because we go through and I suspect this isn't a transgender woman thing. This is a woman in Western society thing, really. We fear believing that we're pretty, believing that somebody will love us. Gosh, I hope I said that well enough. You're nodding, so I'm going to run with it. But I think that's a lot of the fear. And it's not even social acceptance, it's a personal acceptance. We fear, yeah, accepting ourselves. I
Yeah.
think that's it.
Yeah. Accepting yourself. Everybody's afraid of change. Everybody is,
Mm,
even though you're miserable where you are right now, it's familiar. You know what I mean? Like if you're
yeah.
in like survival mode and you're then not in survival mode, a lot of people go right back because they don't know how to handle not having bills, not having, you dig yourself out of debt. And
Yep.
a lot of times people find themselves right back in it the next year. It's like the bankruptcy, you go back and you end up filing again.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's almost addictive what we do with ourselves,
Mm,
with how we talk to ourselves, drama, stress, like all of that is something that if you grow up that way or you've been that way for years or you've had like medical stuff going on and you're just constantly worried about the next thing is going to happen because that's where you're focusing.
right.
It's yeah, I lost my train of thought too, but it is it is a fear of change, of acceptance of yourself, especially. I think you're definitely right.
Mm,
Because you know what? We were taught that we were bragging, that we were,
yes.
yeah,
Yes.
that we thought an awful lot of ourselves, if we liked how we looked or whatever. 80s and 90s were rough, man. They were,
Mm,
it was a rough time to be a kid because you just had all of these things slammed onto you. And if you did not fit into this tiny little box that they made for you,
oh,
like you just were not accepted.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah, like I definitely have bullying stories. I know a ton of people that same thing. Like they were unliked for whatever reason. And, sometimes you don't even realize it until you get older. And that was something that
Right.
matured into me, I think, too, was like, I'm on the spectrum. That's why they didn't like me. Okay, got it. Got it. I got a doctor now that tells me that. So
You're
we're good.
right. Right. Yeah. It doesn't help anyway. But what's interesting though is that you had, if you look around today, and I'm sure there's somebody who loves these people. I don't. But if you look at like a Joe Rogan or an Elon Musk or an Andrew Tate's a poor example because Andrew Tate's actually can be kind of attractive in certain lightings, but the first two were great, right? Joe Rogan, Elon Musk. These are not like, okay, I'm just going to say it. These are not attractive men, okay?
They look
But they
like
have,
thumbs.
but they
They
have a
just, yeah,
ton.
like just neck. Just, yep.
They look like thumbs,
I
but they
agree.
have a ton. They have a ton of confidence, and somehow they built that up. Like,
Hmm.
how the hell does that happen? And I'm not asking you to just, to tell me how society works. I'm still dying about the thumb because I'm looking at Joe Rogan, picturing Joe Rogan, and I'm
Yep.
like, yeah,
Yep.
actually.
They're just straight all the way down. They're just like
Oh my gosh.
yeah.
But like, how does that happen? How come, they're a beautiful, like Tilda Swinton. I'm gonna bring up Tilda Swinton.
Yeah.
Not at all like a classical beauty, right? That you would go, oh yeah, of course, yeah, I'd want to hang out with Tilda. But I mean, gosh, you look at her bone structure, her
Yeah.
eyes. There are things about Tilda Swinton that I just go, oh my God.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
then
for
I look
sure.
at Elon Musk and I do the same, just for very different reasons, right?
It's a good thing he's rich, I guess.
Is that it? So I
I
guess
don't
that's the
know.
question. Like,
Yeah.
how come there are men who are just slobs that they're like they
And
think they're great.
they do. Yeah. They had mamas that told them how great they were all the time. You know, they complain about the participation trophy, but that's what they were getting their entire life.
Ooh, do you think
Yeah,
so?
you know,
Ooh.
being Italian, I know how much Italian moms love their little boys. There's, you know, there's a lot that kind of goes into that, but it's also boys didn't have the thing over their head of, no, you're a girl, you can't do that either. And that was something that I definitely had to fight with. Where I was so into pro wrestling back in the day. Like, I still am, but I absolutely loved it. And all I wanted to do in high school was wrestle. And my dad was a wrestler and whatever.
Wow.
And not a pro, like in high school he wrestled, but like I knew the sport and I really wanted to do it. And there was one other girl in another district that was doing it at the time, but I was not allowed. I had a best friend that wanted to join the football team. She loved football and would have been an asset, but she wasn't allowed. She was a girl. And lots of jobs and things. Even when I can remember when I was really little being told, no, that's a boy job. You know, no, you can't do that. That's a boy sport. So it was frustrating for me to hear on one side, oh, you can do anything. And then to hear on the other side, oh, but you better not.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Somewhat of a mixed message there. Yeah. It's like, you know, every human can grow up and be whatever they want to be. Well, I mean, except for you, because you have a vagina and you have to go and do something. You're not going to be a chef because if you are, you must be gay and, you know. Right.
Yeah.
What? We can do anything except if it makes other people uncomfortable.
Exactly.
Those creepy old white men wondering what's in your pants, you know.
Yeah.
So.
I had been asked a lot too, like the fact that I do say that I'm a women's portraiture person and I'm not, I am photographing men, just I'm not taking as much time with them as I do with women because they don't need it. They don't need the hand holding. Yeah. And it's mostly that men, as soon as I get them to sit in the chair, right? And then I would normally go about directing a woman how to sit and how to move her limbs. And guys just sit exactly how I need them to sit, usually. Like they just naturally go into it. And it's that confidence that they've had from especially white guys. Like, I remember now what I was going to say. Somebody had asked me, you know, are you anti-man or whatever it is? And I'm like, no, I'm not. You know, I love men. Like they're great. But I can't relate to them, and I can't relate to the kind of non-self confidence that they have. Like if they have low self-esteem, it's for a different reason than a woman would. And it's hard for me to kind of get into that headspace of yeah. And you know, somebody had asked why I don't go to my hometown a whole lot, and I just don't like seeing people there. But also, like the only trouble that I've ever had was with white men from that town. You know what I mean? Like there are different kinds of personalities, and of course, all across the board, right? Like white men can't be wrapped up into a package either, but they're the ones that have the most confidence, I think, to act badly.
Yes. Wow. That's truth. I don't think I can follow up with that one. I mean, very good.
Sorry, that was probably way too much.
No. It was a very good point. It was when you were telling that, because I was thinking back to that photo shoot that I did. And the first thing I did, I sat down and the photographer was like, what's wrong? I'm like, what do you mean what's wrong? I'm sitting here. So, well, don't loosen up. You know, quit. What's wrong? Put your shoulders back a little bit. Don't you like having boobs? I'm like, yeah, I like them. What are you talking about? I'm like, I'm sitting comfortably. And she's like, you are not. That's the thing. I can look at you and I can go, you are not comfortable here.
Right.
I mean, she said this more nicely. Yeah. You don't begin by berating somebody else. I'm going to build your confidence, you loser. You don't start with that. You know?
No.
But I get that. And it's funny because it's like, yeah, I've always, anytime I'd go into a room, I don't care where it was, I wanted to crawl into a corner. I wanted to shrink as much as possible into this
Yep.
tiny little bit. I'm not really here. I'm not here.
Yeah.
Even if I was
Right.
putting on the meeting. So
Yep.
crazy.
Yeah. No, we're taught to hide. Like when
Yeah.
we are overweight or not what we think people expect to see,
Sure.
or whatever it is that you got built up in your head about who you are and not being accepted for that person, we'll be in group pictures and hide behind our kids, or
Yeah.
make sure we're way in the back of the group so that all you see is a face, if that. No, it's unfortunate that we beat ourselves up enough to think that we are not worthy of even being in somebody's group picture.
Yeah.
And it's sad. It's very sad. And the experiences are going to be different across, what kind of how this woman identifies to herself. But
Yeah.
it's unfortunately something that we probably have a long way to go before fixing. But
I think
we're getting
so.
there.
Yeah. No, I think so. But so, I mean, let me ask the question directly then. Is every one of us beautiful? Is every one of us worthy?
Every one of us is worthy. Yes. Everyone is beautiful. I have a dear friend. If you look her up, she did a TED Talk. She's fantastic. Her name is Zoe Cross.
Okay.
She is somebody that was born with, she doesn't have muscles in her face. So it almost looks as though she had a stroke. But she has lived like this her entire life, and had identified as almost a monster because the kids in her class made fun of her so badly, and adults won't look at her. And, it was. And now she is giving talks on how to be a confident woman. She is doing talks on her differences and why she's happy that she has them. She has a beautiful partner. She just got married that she never thought that would happen. And she is just rocking and rolling. And I'm telling you, you will cry your eyes out when you watch this TED Talk. Like, she is amazing. And if somebody who thought that they were monstrous when they were a child and was told how ugly they were, can go into this beautiful confidence in herself and in her life, and not accepting the BS that people want to throw at her, anybody can do it.
I am going to link to that. Zoe Cross. Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because that's got to be exactly what we need to see today. It's got to be.
I agree. Yeah.
That was a good story. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Need to go and make another cup of coffee or something. It was good. We're running out of time, which always makes me very sad. Can you just tell us, how do we find Elizabeth Snyder on the internet now?
Yeah, so I am ESP LLC almost everywhere, or just Elizabeth Snyder Photography. Okay. I'm on Instagram and YouTube and Facebook. I stopped doing TikTok, which now it's going to be banned anyway, so I guess it's fine.
Sure. Yeah,
I'm also not on Twitter since it became nice.
Well,
so
right, because you've chosen not to use software designed by thumbs.
I have, yes. It's a no thumb zone right here.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah, and actually I just wrote a book, which is hopefully going to be published this week on Amazon. Yeah, it's called Unbroken: Finding Your Purpose Through Trauma.
Okay. I don't even think, is that on your website? How
Probably
did I miss
not.
that?
I haven't published it yet. It's done.
Gosh.
I'm just reviewing it for the last things, and it should be ready to launch as soon as they approve it. It's on Amazon, so there'll be a free Kindle version, or else it'll be $2.99. And then the book is cheap, but it's got all of my little life lessons in it for gaining confidence and being worthy of living your purpose.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm going to link that too. That sounds fascinating.
Yeah.
Does it have your like your story in it? Is that like how you came to all of this all these conclusions?
Two stories in it from me, and the rest were short stories from
Okay.
just kind of addressing the different points. But I do have my two more important ones: how I knew my purpose, and how I knew I wasn't living my purpose, and that
Okay.
trip to the food bank. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's awesome. I had no idea. Thank you for. Why didn't you bring that up like 5 minutes in? Just, by the way, I have a book.
By the way, yeah. So yeah, you know that thing where we're bragging and we don't like to talk about ourselves. Yeah,
Oh, well,
yep. But
that
I
was an
will be happy to leave.
exceptional. Yeah. What an exceptional demonstration. There you go. Thanks for
Right.
very cool. Well, I mean, I don't. You were so delightful. I love. There's I was thinking of this about halfway through. I sometimes I feel a little bit uncomfortable. No, not sometimes. Almost all the times I still feel kind of uncomfortable when people address me as just a woman. I'm not sure how else
Okay.
to put that.
Yeah.
But you everything that you said, you brought up, yeah, that's how we are. That's remember that's what we get. That's this we and I just thought, you see me, you just see me. And I'm gonna end up crying again if I go too far into this, but I can't tell you how much that meant to me, first of all. And I think your story is great. I'm so glad we have you in this world to
Well,
show
same,
us how we
same
go.
girl. Yes,
Thank
no,
you.
for real. Like, yeah, yeah. No, you're amazing. I was so glad that we connected. I
Yeah.
am very honored to be on here with you.
Oh, thank you.
And no, for sure. And, like I said, everybody's experiences as a woman are different. They're all varied. So, what's one more thing? It's
It's
you
a good.
are who you are.
Thank you.
You're happy if you're happy and in love and just want to show the world who you are. Like, what is more beautiful than that? You know,
I
that's
don't.
it's incredible what you do.
Yeah, I don't know of anything else more beautiful than that. So yeah, I continue to be continue to be confused by anybody who would recommend against it or legislate against it.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
I know. And then again, it just comes down to what is making them uncomfortable
Mm-hmm.
and not about if somebody is happy, let them be happy. Like that's in the Constitution,
Right?
pursuit of happiness. Yeah,
Weren't we supposed to have that? I don't
absolutely.
know.
Yeah.
We get too they get too caught up in the pursuit of their own happiness to go, look, your pursuit of happiness makes me a little less happy, so
Right.
gonna
Yeah.
need to legislate
It,
you out of existence.
uh
Sorry.
huh. Yeah. No, it always feels like lack when equity starts to come into play.
Mm,
So the people who have always had the privilege and the things that they expect out of life, and then things start to change and more people are becoming equal, they feel like, oh, this mediocre white guy at his job is going to lose his job because he's not a
mhm.
bad worker, and this other person's going to take it because they're good,
Yeah.
and it does feel to them oftentimes like equity is something that they're getting punished for. And I think that's where a lot of it kind of comes in is, no, this is the way things are supposed to be. And the end.
Right. Right. I'm trying to remember who sent me something recently. It's not that important, but I mean, just how some of us have to continue to prove ourselves over and over and over, and so you mentioned the mediocre white guy losing his job. It's like, well, the mediocre white guy probably was still thought of as far better
Yeah.
than a really good woman
Mm-hmm.
because the woman had to prove herself over and over and over and
Exactly.
that's they fear losing power or whatever.
Right.
And can you, I don't know, are these people so poor at introspection that they don't see, all right, this is somebody who could do the job better and fair, you know?
Right. Yeah, they don't.
Well, yes.
I find that people
Well,
really,
thanks
they
for
don't.
answering the
Well,
question.
I find that people don't change unless they're given a reason, because why else would you? Right? Like, you're not
Right.
going to change if everything's going well for you. You're not going to like, oh, well, what am I doing wrong? Because nothing.
No.
You're not, you know.
Right.
So yeah,
Right.
it's something that they aren't used to doing, because things
Mhm.
are kind of falling into their laps a lot of times.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, let me.
Yeah.
See, now I'm gonna. Now I have to shut it down. I said like 10 minutes ago. I was like, wow, I hate when I reach this end, but now I really have to do it. I will just say again, Elizabeth, thank you so much for agreeing to talk to me. Thank you so much for everything you do. Very, very appreciated. I will also say thank you to our listeners. You know, I love this joke. There was somebody I said, I want to say thank you to our listeners, both of our listeners. And I meant those who are listening for you and those who are listening for me. But it came out, both of our
You know,
listeners.
the two.
Yeah, I hope we have more than two. But if we don't, at least that was accurate, right? So say thank you to our listeners. I am Amethyst Herrick. I'm here with Liz Snyder, talking about our inner goddess, finding yourself, finding your mission, finding your purpose, and staying away from those who look like thumbs. So just keep that in mind. Thank you again.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Good. Thank you.